So look, is Airbnb actually your friend, or are they protecting guests? Look, you've probably seen in this video title that Eric, who's our client, launched a property with us, and the exciting of getting bookings, obviously listing on Airbnb, and all of a sudden we get an email saying your account's been deleted. So look, if you're new to this property game, you're new to short-term rental property, it's all good in that you're going and securing property, but you also need to understand the operational of Airbnb. How they're going to react when you launch a property. Are they going to let you launch it straight away? Are they going to suspend your account? If they delete your account, what do you do? So guys, in this video, I want to take you through step-by-step process on what we've done for Eric and how he's got to manage to get his account back, and at the end of the day, had a successful launch. Now, I'm happy to share some of the results that he's got, but more importantly, his understanding and his launch on Airbnb itself. Now, let's talk about Eric's reaction. I mean, it could be the biggest nightmare for someone who's took a bit of time, well, he owns that property, so he's managed to secure it in the nicest way possible in terms of, putting great furnitures, making sure that the property looks amazing. I'm going to post some pictures now for you so you can have a look, but more importantly, the excitement of going, actually, I want to launch this property. I really want to make sure I get the best out of, getting those incredible bookings. And next minute, it's gone off, the account's deleted. So Eric, all of a sudden, I'll get a phone call going, Piers, what's happening? Why is my account deleted? What can I do? Like you said, and I was like, Eric, there's nothing we can do right now. Airbnb controls this. Airbnb, now in this case, is kind of protecting their end user. You must understand there's enough people at the moment creating ads. Well, it used to happen a lot before where the verification process was very little or nothing, and eventually there was a lot of fraud happening on Airbnb, people booking places and people actually turning up and there's no property. So things like that's always happened. So to protect Airbnb itself, it protect their guest, obviously they've done this, but it was quite a funny phone call to have Eric on there going, what do I do next? Like, how can I get? So yeah, it was quite easy for us to go back and, again, I'm going to show you now what we've exactly done, and let's go through the process step by step. Now, let's talk about, as you can see from the screen here, Eric, basically Airbnb email saying your listing has been removed from Airbnb account because of, your account hasn't followed the policy interaction honestly. Now, in that case, if you look at what they're saying there's something in terms of, either number or messaging, sometimes people exchange numbers which are not allowed on Airbnb, all that, but actually the reality was the Airbnb wasn't launched. So how is that even possible to be able to not interact, in the right way? So for example, in this case, you've got to think, why did Airbnb do this? Now, a lot of time people have properties similar to Eric's in that location, and sometimes those people might not have run it successfully, and as a result of that area could be a flag to a potential Airbnb, to Airbnb system wise. And eventually what you're going to see here today was Airbnb listing was completed by us. So like we do for our clients, we created the account for a client. We created the listing for our client. We then passed it over to the client to do a verification, which is, Airbnb wants you to send a legal photo ID like passport or driving license. They want you to verify a phone number so that you've not used that phone number before. So we've gone through the exact process like we do with, hundreds of Airbnb properties we've launched. But in this case, there's something in the back end that clocked it. Now, certainly for us, Eric has to speak to Airbnb. Now, we can't do that on behalf of Eric, because eventually what's going to happen is, Airbnb support team will generally go, Piers, is this your property, or what is it, your company? Now, in this case, we wanted Eric to go through that process so that he's got the clear opportunity to say, I actually own that property. I've got full proofs, and obviously we had to follow a certain process. Now, in this case, having that first conversation, and again, I want to show you on screen share now, is they will literally say you go in, your account has been locked for security reasons. Now you've got to give some whatever proof. Now in this case, obviously Eric didn't know what to do. So I got involved and I effectively went, well, Eric is the owner of the property. He's happy to give you all the proofs, like if you need deed, ownership, insurance, whatever he needs to prove that he owns that property or his company owns that property. So effectively, once I've done that, I send it, and now normally it takes up to 24 hours. Now, as a host, one thing you should always realize is Airbnb clocks, the problem at the moment could be, inaccurate listing on what you've actually presented. Your account is more likely to be removed if you've got mispresentation of anything. So if you're saying that is the property, let's say for argument's sake, you use a dummy photo for pre-launch, whatever, and it doesn't look anywhere like your actual property, that is fair. Airbnb is gonna, suspend it because they feel like that is not the right property. But in this case, that is exactly why we've weighted the right photos. Obviously, we've got pre-launch strategies that we work with Airbnb clients, but we took our time to understand and make sure the listing was exactly right. Now, after doing that, we then waited, and we got a message and an email saying, the account's up and running. Now, we were fully excited at that point. We didn't have to really submit anything. They reviewed it, they looked at it, and they went, okay, cool, yeah, fine. You've told what you need to tell. Eventually, quite shockingly, they then actually went back again and removed the Airbnb account. And this is where it got a bit serious, because we've wasted about 24 hours to 2 days actually, listing it, getting it live, getting it suspended, and then all of a sudden now it goes live and then it gets deleted. Now, we're not just talking 2 days waste, there's about 4 days. Now for me, that's a massive lead time opportunity. Again, if you're new to this business, you need to understand what lead time is a customer actually wanting to book you, and when do they actually check in. And that tells me that a lot of time we're missing opportunity for longer term bookings. And today we're sitting here, I've launched 4 properties, 3 in London, central London, 1 in Peterborough. The 3 in London is doing amazing right at the moment. The 1 in Peterborough slightly struggling. We're using different techniques, but the first 4 properties the first 3 properties we've launched have done smashingly well. My clients, secured I think a 56 night booking or something like that. I'm going to put a screenshot here. And that are the things that we're looking to do when we launch property. I'm not, I keep saying in my videos, we're not interested to get customers the 2-3 nights booking. We're all about getting those long-term booking and having successful launches. Now, let's talk about, is Airbnb system useless or are they being protective? Now, in my case, look, they've always been, I would probably say as an OTA, they're probably much more fair on both guest as well as the host. So, if you're hosting on Airbnb, but you're obviously as an OTA, there's booking.com, TripAdvisor, Expedia, hotels.com. There's many other platforms, Verbo. And for me, Airbnb is probably much more fair on, the decisions they make based on what they do. And again, I'm about to do a video where I always say to our clients where let's say you've got a client who's booked you from Airbnb, and if you're messaging them outside Airbnb, let's say they've secured a booking, you're talking to them on WhatsApp because it's obviously confirmed, you now have the numbers. If there's any problem, you should always take it back to messaging on Airbnb, because then that way your support team on Airbnb can see exactly what's happened right through the messaging. If they can't and you've got WhatsApp, then they really don't get to see what conversation you've had and what steps you've taken to protect your business as well as the guests. So so for me, I don't think Airbnb is systems useless, but I totally think that sometimes being overprotective of what they're trying to achieve, which is fair on them. They've had problems. I haven't heard a lot in the UK, but places like different places around the world has had this problem before with fake listing and stuff. So I personally think it's a fair thing to do that allows Airbnb. I think Airbnb should really make sure that even when you're uploading a property, you should, if you're doing a rent-to-rent or rent-to-arbitrage, they should be, obviously it's legal matters, but with data protection and stuff, they should be allowing us to actually upload the agreement, which then allows them to be 100% sure about the property. And also it's fair for the potential guest who's going to spend, in our case, we're looking to get monthly bookings. If somebody spends £3,500 on a booking, they want to make sure that they're fully secured, right? And in this case, that is why I truly believe that Airbnb has an amazing protection towards their, to investigate Eric at this point to make sure that is the right property. Now, let's talk about the process. Firstly, how do you find out your account is suspended or removed? And secondly, how do you go about making sure you appeal or put a complaint or go through their verification process? So firstly, if it ever goes suspended or your account's removed, you're going to get firstly an email from Airbnb. I'm going to put an email right now, template, to show you what exactly it looks like. Then after that, you've got an option to appeal, right? In that email, you might not find their email straight away. They might have, I don't know if you have your customer service number. Actually, I'm going to put Airbnb customer support number now on the screen for you, so you can actually, save it on your phone. That is purely for support for your hosting. And you can call them and obviously have a chat. Now, in this case, look, you need to understand why they've removed it, because there's numbers of reasons. Like I mentioned to you earlier, it could be a wrong listing. It could be, when you're creating listing, you've done a wrong address on it. Like little things like that makes a massive difference on it. Obviously, if you're listing your property for the first time, you don't know the guidelines exactly on what they're allowing you to do or not. So so then the next thing you want to talk about is making sure that what proofs do they need, right? Step 3 on what proofs do they need to actually get you verified fully now on the account, and obviously for them to go, yeah, that is the person who owns that property, that is the person's, that is the property detail, as well as that's the ownership of the property, and also to make sure that that never happens again. Because look, at the end of the day, you are building a business, right? You obviously are using an advertising platform. I do talk a lot about direct bookings, right? Something completely different, much more control. Don't have to worry about your listing being suspended. But in this case, you have to go through the verification tool to get your account back. Now, Eric, in this case, submitted his photos, right? So he had to manually again send a photo of before, right, when they were actually refurbishing the property. He also sent them the ownership. He also sent them obviously his photo ID, and that is the appeal process. Once we send the email, and it generally takes up to 24 hours for them to review it and come back to you, and your account will be fully verified. Now, again, I'm going to put a screenshot of Eric speaking to Pam and in Airbnb, who is a great support team. Airbnb team's always amazing, and again, in this case, they've proved that as long as you're working with them, they can really work with you. But in this case, if you see, Eric's put some refurb photos. He's also put his utility bills to make sure, and also to make sure that he's given enough proof to get the account back up and live. Now, for some more trust, I always say, look, while we're working on Airbnb, this is what I keep saying in my channel. Let's start building your brand. This is where you're going to find it so much better long term to grow your business in a way that you want to have more control and not worry about things like this. Is it worth launching a website while you're launching Airbnb? Yes, but Airbnb could potentially take 24 hours for you to get into the right market. Obviously, you're paying that fee, right? But long term wise, you want to make sure you invest time in your website. Like, for example, us. My company, Better Than Hotel, at the moment we feature thousands of properties in the UK, and the whole idea of that platform, and it's purely to allow short-term rental property owners to attract direct booking and not worry about paying commission, not worry about having guidelines and stuff. In Better Than Hotel, we allow customers to get phone calls directly. If you look at a profile, it's such an easy way. And the reason why we did that was we wanted to influence short-term rental operators. Doesn't matter if you've got 1 or 10 or 100 properties, to really start focusing on your long-term investment of brand building. So look, I'm going to scroll down a Better Than Hotel video now. Do go and check it out. It will give you some kind of idea of how to list your properties online for your personal website too. And finally, like that, after 24 hours, Eric had his account back in live. You can see from the screen, it goes, thanks for providing your government ID. And it says, Airbnb is looking good. your ID looks good, you're all set to host and book on Airbnb. And you know what? After that, he landed his first 17 nights booking. Also, the client extended for a few nights as a part of direct booking. But what an amazing story. Now, guys, quite a bit of challenging part. Normally, I've had successful launches, like I've said, for Niels, Faisal in the last 2 days. We've launched about 4 properties and we've had stunning results. But at the same time, challenges like this can stop you, especially if you spend time setting up, you picked up the keys, you've already kind of not wasted, but you've taken time, like 2 weeks gone. If you're doing a rent-to-rent, you've got your next bill coming or your mortgage is coming, and you want to make sure you start making money now. And that is the whole part of this cash flow business, right? That is what Airbnb is all about, creating high cash flow for your properties or your properties in your portfolio. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed sharing this. It's an experience that we get to share personally, that we go through every day in this channel. And look, make sure you hit that like, subscribe and share. Look, if you're not connected with me on social, I share a lot of things on my Facebook and Instagram on a daily basis, which is going to help you grow, scale and operate your short-term rental property. So thank you so much for watching.